Woman humiliates sick husband in hospital. 8 years later, she needs a transplant and discovers he is the only compatible donor. The sun streamed through the large windows of the hospital room, casting a warm glow over the sterile environment. Sarah stood by Ethan's bedside, her heart heavy as she adjusted the IV line that dripped slowly into his arm. He lay there, a mere shadow of the vibrant man she once knew, his body frail and weak from the relentless grip of the degenerative disease. The beeping of machines filled the silence, punctuating the thick air with reminders of his fragile state. "Sarah," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible. He turned his head slightly, trying to catch her gaze. "You look tired." She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Ethan. Just a long shift," she replied, her tone betraying the fatigue that weighed down on her. She couldn't bear to show him how much she was struggling. He had enough to worry about without her burdens. As she meticulously checked his vitals, she felt a wave of frustration wash over her. The memories of their life before the illness flooded her mind. Adventures, laughter, and dreams shared under the Californian sun. Now it felt like they were trapped in an endless cycle of doctor visits, medications, and helplessness. "Do you want me to read to you?" Sarah offered, trying to bridge the chasm that had grown between them. Ethan often enjoyed the escape that stories provided, but today he just shook his head. "No, I want to talk," he said, his eyes searching hers for a connection that had become increasingly elusive. "What's there to talk about?" Sarah snapped, her voice rising unexpectedly. "You're here, and I'm here. We both know what's happening. What's the point?" Ethan flinched at her tone, and Sarah immediately regretted it. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean." "Just tell me what you really think," he urged, his frustration seeping through. "You don't have to pretend with me." She opened her mouth to respond, but found herself speechless. The weight of their past, the love, the laughter, the arguments seemed to suffocate her. Sarah clenched her fists, her heart racing as she realized how trapped she felt. "I'm tired, Ethan. Tired of feeling like I'm losing you piece by piece, day by day. It's suffocating." Ethan's expression shifted from hurt to anger. "So you think shouting at me will make it better? I'm not a burden, Sarah. I'm still here, fighting." "Fighting?" she echoed, her voice laced with bitterness. "You're a shadow of the man you used to be. I can't keep pretending that this is okay, that we're okay." As the words left her mouth, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and shame. The tension in the room intensified, thick enough to cut through. She watched as Ethan's face fell, a mixture of pain and disbelief washing over him. "Do you really believe that?" he asked softly, his voice filled with hurt. "That I'm just a burden?" She stammered, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, anger bubbled up again, and she could feel it spilling over. "You don't understand what it's like for me. I can't keep watching you slip away. I can't keep pretending." The room fell silent as Ethan's gaze dropped to the sheets, a painful stillness enveloping them. "You think I want this? You think I'm happy being this shadow? I had dreams, Sarah. I was going to be someone, and now look at me." "Look at you?" Sarah struggled to find the words that could heal rather than hurt. "I just want the man I fell in love with back. Maybe you should have thought about that before you humiliated me in front of everyone." Ethan's voice rose, echoing off the sterile walls, and Sarah felt her chest tighten at his words. "Ethan, What? You want to apologize? What good will that do now?" he interrupted, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You made it clear how you feel. I'm just a burden to you now." "Stop it," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You're not just a burden. I didn't mean it like that. I'm scared, okay? Scared of losing you." But her words fell flat between them, a chasm of silence replacing the words they had exchanged. The love they once shared felt distant, and all that remained was a bitter reality that neither knew how to navigate. The sun cast a warm glow over the California coastline, but inside Sarah's modest apartment, shadows loomed large. 8 years had passed since that fateful day at the hospital, yet the remnants of her tumultuous past clung to her like a second skin. Each morning, she would wake up to the haunting memories of her husband, Ethan, once a vibrant artist, now a man reduced to a frail shell by a relentless disease. The bright sunlight streaming through her window only served to amplify the darkness in her heart. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, her fingers tracing the rim of a coffee mug, the bitter liquid untouched. The weight of her guilt was suffocating. "I can't believe I said those things to him," she muttered to herself, her voice barely above a whisper. The image of Ethan's face, twisted in pain and disbelief, as she unleashed her fury, played on a loop in her mind. She had wanted to scream, to lash out at the world, but instead, she had directed that anger at the one person who had once loved her without condition. "Sarah?" A soft voice broke through her reverie. It was Mia, her childhood friend who had been a constant source of support. Mia entered the apartment, her smile warm but her eyes filled with concern. "You've been distant lately. Are you okay?" "Sure, just peachy," Sarah replied, forcing a smile that felt foreign on her lips. "Just thinking." Mia pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Thinking about Ethan again?" Sarah sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "I can't help it, Mia. I ruined everything. I was supposed to be there for him, to support him, and instead, I humiliated him." Mia leaned in, her expression earnest. "You were under a lot of pressure, Sarah. You can't blame yourself for everything. You need to forgive yourself." "Forgive myself? How?" "I can't even look at a picture of him without feeling like I'm going to choke," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "He was my everything, and I turned my back on him when he needed me most." "Have you thought about reaching out to him?" Mia asked gently. "Maybe he needs to hear from you." The mere thought sent a wave of panic through Sarah. "I'm not ready for that. What if he hates me? What if he refuses to talk to me? I can't face that." "You won't know unless you try," Mia pressed. "You owe it to him and to yourself." Before Sarah could respond, her phone rang, breaking the tension in the air. She glanced at the screen, her heart racing as she recognized the hospital's number. "Hello?" she answered, her voice trembling. "Miss Jacobs, this is Dr. Miller. I need to speak with you about your recent tests," the doctor said, his tone serious. "Is something wrong?" Panic gripped Sarah as she listened intently. "You're in urgent need of a kidney transplant. Your condition has worsened, and I'm afraid you might not have much time," he explained, the gravity of his words weighing heavily upon her. "Transplant? But isn't there someone else?" she stammered, her mind racing with the implications. "I'm afraid not. Your best match, your only match at this point, is your husband, Ethan," the doctor concluded, leaving Sarah in stunned silence. The phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the table. A whirlwind of emotions surged through her, fear, guilt, and an overwhelming sense of desperation. The man she had hurt so deeply was now her only hope for survival. "What have I done?" she whispered, the tears streaming down her cheeks. Mia placed a comforting hand on her back, allowing Sarah to lean into her friend's embrace. "You can do this, Sarah. You need to talk to him. It's time to face the past and ask for forgiveness, not just for him, but for yourself." Sarah wiped her tears, her heart pounding with the weight of the decision before her. She had to reach out to Ethan. It was the only way to find redemption, and perhaps, just perhaps, a chance to mend the broken pieces of their love. Ethan sat in the dimly lit room of the support group, surrounded by strangers whose faces mirrored his own pain. The walls were painted a muted gray, and the air was heavy with unspoken fears and shared experiences. He listened intently as another patient spoke about the daily battles of living with a degenerative disease, their voice trembling with emotion. Ethan felt a familiar knot tightening in his stomach, the weight of his own struggles creeping back into his mind. "Every day is a new challenge," the woman said, her eyes glistening with tears. "I just want to be able to walk my dog again, to feel the sun on my face without pain." Ethan nodded, understanding all too well the longing for normalcy. He had once been an aspiring photographer, capturing the beauty of life through his lens. But now, he felt like a shadow of his former self, trapped in a body that betrayed him. As the group continued to share their stories, Ethan's thoughts drifted back to Sarah. He remembered the spark in her eyes when they first met, the laughter they shared, and the way she encouraged him to pursue his dreams. But that was before the disease had taken hold, before he became a mere shell of the man he used to be. The memory of her harsh words during that fateful day in the hospital echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of his humiliation. When it was finally his turn to speak, Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of the group on him. I used to think I was strong, he began, his voice steady but quiet. I was a photographer, passionate about capturing moments. But now I feel like I've lost everything. I'm just a burden. The room fell silent, the weight of his confession hanging in the air. He glanced around, noticing the understanding nods from the others. I lost my ability to create, and that's what hurts the most. I don't know how to cope with this, with the shame of being a shadow of the man I used to be. A man sitting across from him leaned forward, his eyes filled with empathy. You're not a burden, Ethan. We all have our struggles. It's okay to feel lost, but you have to find something to hold on to. Have you thought about picking up your camera again? Ethan shook his head, frustration bubbling within him. How can I? I can barely lift my arms some days. I can't even take a decent picture anymore. You won't know until you try, the man replied gently. Maybe it's not about being perfect. It's about finding a way to express what you feel. Art can be healing. Ethan felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly extinguished by the memories of his last attempt at photography. He had tried to take a picture of the sunset one evening, but the lens felt heavy in his hands, and the beauty that once inspired him seemed out of reach. After the meeting, Ethan lingered, watching as the others filed out. He felt a pull to stay, to share more, but a part of him wanted to retreat into the shadows. Just then, the group leader approached him, a kind smile on her face. You did well today, Ethan. It's not easy to share your story. Thanks, he murmured, looking down at his hands. I don't know if I'll ever feel whole again. None of us are whole, she said softly. But you're here, and that's a start. Each small step counts, even if it feels insignificant. As he walked back to his small apartment, Ethan couldn't shake the weight of the conversation. He remembered the joy of capturing life, the thrill of creating something beautiful. The thought of picking up a camera again filled him with dread. What if he failed? What if he couldn't capture the world as he once did? Once inside, he moved to the corner of the room where his old camera sat, gathering dust. It felt like a relic of a past life, a reminder of everything he had lost. He picked it up hesitantly, running his fingers over the worn leather strap. I miss you, he whispered, feeling a sense of longing wash over him. I miss who I used to be. In that moment of vulnerability, he realized that while the disease had stolen much from him, it hadn't taken away his memories or his passion. Perhaps it was time to face his fears and find a way to express the turmoil within. Maybe, just maybe, the path to healing lay in the very thing he had once loved the most. As fluorescent lights flickered above Sarah as she walked through the hospital corridors, the sterile smell of antiseptic and disinfectant filling her nostrils. Each step felt heavier than the ultimo, burdened with memories of the past, memories that now morphed into an unbearable weight on her chest. She had spent so long avoiding this moment, yet here she was, standing on the precipice of confrontation. Just breathe, she whispered to herself, her heart racing uncontrollably. The echo of her shoes against the tiled floor seemed to mock her, reminding her of the time when she had once walked these halls with a sense of purpose and pride. Now those feelings were stripped away, replaced by guilt and regret. As she approached Ethan's room, she hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. What could she possibly say to him after everything? The image of their last encounter flashed through her mind. The raw pain in his eyes as she had unleashed her frustration in front of everyone, belittling the man she had once adored. Her stomach churned with remorse. With a deep breath, Sarah finally opened the door. The sight before her took her breath away. Ethan lay in the hospital bed, his body frail and thin, the once vibrant man now reduced to a mere shadow of himself. Yet, despite his physical deterioration, there was a spark in his eyes, an indomitable spirit that she had always admired. Sarah, Ethan said, his voice hoarse but steady. He turned his head slightly, his gaze piercing through the emotional fog that enveloped them. What are you doing here? Ethan, she began, her voice shaking. The words felt trapped in her throat, desperately clawing to escape, but the weight of her past loomed over them. I came to see you. Did you come to gloat? He shot back, bitterness lacing his tone. Or are you here to tell me how much of a burden I am again? No, she exclaimed, taking a step closer, her heart pounding. I'm not here to hurt you. I need to talk. Talk? He scoffed, his eyes narrowing. What could possibly be left to say? You said everything you needed to that day. The tension in the room thickened, wrapping around them like a shroud. Sarah felt her throat tighten. She had never intended to humiliate him. I was angry and overwhelmed, she confessed, her voice breaking. I took it out on you, and I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you like that. Ethan's expression softened for a moment, but it was quickly replaced by skepticism. Sorry doesn't change what happened, Sarah. You can't just erase the pain with a few words. I know, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I've spent years trying to understand what I did, and I've lived with the guilt every single day. I miss you. I miss who you were, who we were together. He remained silent, staring at her with an intensity that made her heart race. You say you miss me, yet here you are, coming to me when you need something. What was it that you lost, Sarah? A part of yourself? Or just the convenience of having me around? The accusation stung like a slap, and Sarah flinched. That's not fair, she replied, her voice trembling. I didn't even want to come here, but I have to face the reality of my choices. I need your help. Ethan shifted slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Help? What do you mean? She took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling heavily in the air. I need a kidney transplant. My doctor called, and you're the only match. The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken words. Ethan's expression hardened again, and Sarah felt her heart sink further. So you've come to me out of desperation then? Is that what this is? No, she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. I didn't plan this. I wouldn't have reached out if it wasn't life or death. It's not just about that. It's about us, what we lost. I want to make amends. Ethan's eyes flickered with a mixture of emotions, anger, hurt, and perhaps a sliver of hope. You think this is going to fix everything? That a surgery can mend years of pain? No, she said softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. But it's a start. I want to try, Ethan. I want to fight for us again, if you'll let me. The air between them crackled with tension as Ethan's gaze bore into her, searching for truth in her words. You really think it can be that simple? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, she admitted, her heart racing with uncertainty. But I have to believe it can be. Trembling with a mix of anticipation and dread, Sarah stood at the threshold of Ethan's hospital room. She had rehearsed this moment over and over in her mind, her heart racing as she pushed the door open. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of flowers that someone had brought. Ethan lay on the bed, frail but undeniably still a force of presence, his eyes a striking contrast to the pallor of his skin. The moment their gazes met, an undeniable tension filled the room, a heaviness that hung like fog. Sarah, Ethan said, his voice low and gravelly, a mere whisper carried by the weight of unspoken words. He turned his head slightly, the movement seemingly requiring all of his strength. What are you doing here? I came to see you, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. She stepped further into the room, the sounds of other patients and nurses fading into the background. I've thought about you every single day. Ethan raised an eyebrow, his expression a mix of skepticism and guarded curiosity. Thought about me, or thought about what you did? He paused, allowing the silence to swell between them, the bitterness of the past coloring the air. I remember that day, you know. You made it clear how you felt. I know. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, her heart aching for the man who once filled her life with joy. I was wrong, Ethan. I was overwhelmed, and I took it out on you. You were not a burden. You were my love. I lost myself for a moment. Ethan's expression remained hard, his jaw clenched. You humiliated me, Sarah. In front of everyone. You made me feel like I was less than human. His voice trembled with suppressed emotion. Do you really think you can just walk back into my life and erase that? No, she cried, her voice breaking. I don't expect to erase anything. I just want you to know how sorry I am. I've carried that guilt with me for years. I never wanted to hurt you. I loved you too much for that. Ethan's gaze softened for just a moment as he absorbed her words, but he quickly steeled himself again. And now you need something from me. A kidney, right? His voice dripped with skepticism. Is that why you're really here? Because I'm your only option? Sarah felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. No, Ethan, please don't think that. She stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "I didn't come here just to ask for a transplant. I came here to face what I did, to tell you how deeply sorry I am, to reconnect. I need you in my life, not just as a donor, but as the man I still love." A flicker of pain crossed Ethan's face, and he turned his head away, looking out the window at the California sun filtering through the blinds. "It's easy to say you love someone when you need something from them. But it's not just that," she insisted, desperation edging her voice. "I've been in this dark place, Ethan. I've missed you every single day. And yes, I need your help, but I also need your forgiveness. I want to be better. For both of us." Ethan's silence stretched on, heavy and charged with unresolved feelings. Finally, he turned back to her, his eyes searching her face. "You think I can just forgive you because you're standing here crying? You think that's enough?" "I know it's not enough," Sarah replied, her voice trembling with sincerity. "But I want to try. I want to fight for us, for whatever this is. I'd give anything to turn back time, to change that moment, but I can't. All I can do is ask for your forgiveness and hope that maybe, just maybe, we can find a way back to each other." Ethan's expression was unreadable, and for a moment it felt as if time had frozen. The air was thick with the weight of their shared past, filled with both love and pain. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words hesitated on the tip of his tongue, caught in the tumult of his emotions. "Tell me, Sarah," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why should I believe you?" Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The late afternoon sun filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows on the walls of her room. She had spent the last few days in a haze, grappling with the weight of her past mistakes and the urgent need to confront Ethan. The thought of reaching out to him filled her with dread and hope in equal measure. The conversation with Mia still echoed in her mind, urging her to be brave, to seek forgiveness, and to face the man she had wronged so deeply. With a deep breath, Sarah picked up her phone and dialed Mia's number. The line clicked, and her friend's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Hey Sarah, how are you holding up?" "I don't know, Mia. I keep thinking about Ethan. I feel this urge to see him, to apologize, but I'm terrified." "Sarah, you have to be honest with him. You owe him that. No matter how painful it might be, it's time to face the music." "I know you're right. I just don't know if he'll want to see me. What if he still hates me?" Sarah's voice cracked, vulnerability spilling through her tough exterior. "Then let him hate you, but give him the chance to hear you out. You can't keep running from this forever," Mia encouraged, her voice steady and reassuring. After hanging up, Sarah felt a surge of determination mixed with anxiety. She knew she had to do this. She had to confront her past and the man she had once loved. The very thought of walking through those hospital corridors again made her stomach churn, but she pushed the fear aside. She needed to see Ethan. The following day, Sarah found herself standing outside the hospital, her heart pounding in her chest. The familiar scent of antiseptic filled the air, triggering memories of long nights spent caring for Ethan. She took a moment to collect herself, breathing in deeply before stepping inside. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she was resolute. As she walked through the sterile halls, she passed a few nurses who greeted her with friendly smiles. She managed to return a faint smile, but her mind was focused on one destination, Ethan's room. When she finally reached his door, she hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Memories of their last encounter flooded her mind, the anger, the hurt, the disappointment. But she pushed those thoughts aside and opened the door. Ethan lay in bed, his pale face illuminated by the soft light streaming through the window. He looked fragile, yet there was an undeniable spark in his eyes when he noticed her presence. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. "Sarah," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk," she replied, her heart racing. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. I need to apologize for what I said, for how I treated you." Ethan's expression hardened slightly. "Apology doesn't change what happened. You humiliated me in front of everyone." "I know," Sarah said, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't express how sorry I am. I was overwhelmed, and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve that. You were never a burden to me, Ethan. You were my everything." He looked away, struggling with his emotions. And now? You come here because you need something. Is that it? No, she exclaimed, desperation creeping into her voice. I need to make amends. I've spent the last 8 years tormented by guilt. I miss you, the person you were, the person I loved. I want to be honest with you about everything. Ethan's gaze softened slightly, but doubt lingered in his eyes. Honesty? What do you want me to believe, Sarah? That you care now because you need a kidney? I care because I've realized what I lost. I don't want to just be a faint memory to you, she implored, her voice cracking. I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. Please, just give me a chance to show you. He remained silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Sarah could see the internal battle he was facing, the conflicting emotions written all over his face. She took a step closer, her heart racing. I'm scared, Ethan. Scared of what you'll say, scared of what I'll lose again. But I need you to know that I'm willing to fight for us. For you. Ethan finally looked at her, the vulnerability in his eyes almost breaking her heart. You don't know if I can forgive you. You don't know the pain you caused. I know, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. But I'm willing to try and earn your trust back, even if it takes a lifetime. Just let me start somewhere. In that moment, something shifted in the air between them. The tension was still palpable, but the possibility of healing hung like a fragile thread. Ethan took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling over him. I don't know if I can do that, but maybe we can try. As days passed since their heart-wrenching reunion, Sarah and Ethan found themselves navigating the fragile space between forgiveness and lingering resentment. The hospital room, filled with the faint scent of antiseptic and the soft beeping of monitors, became their refuge, a place where unspoken words hung heavily in the air, waiting for the courage to be voiced. One afternoon, the sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across Ethan's bed. Sarah sat in a chair beside him, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. You know, she began, stealing glances at his face, I remember when we used to take long walks on the beach. You would always bring your camera and capture the sunset. You had this way of seeing the world, like it was full of stories waiting to be told. Ethan turned his head slightly, his eyes brightening with the memory. Yeah, I remember those days. I lived for those moments. Photography was everything to me. It was like I could freeze time, capture feelings. He paused, a shadow crossing his face. But then, everything changed. The disease took that away from me. Sarah's heart ached at his words. You still have that talent, you know? Just because you're not as physically able doesn't mean your passion is gone. You could still find a way to express yourself. Really? Ethan replied, skepticism lacing his voice. You think I could still do it, after everything? I know you can, she insisted, leaning forward, her eyes earnest. You have an incredible eye for beauty, Ethan. You always did. I've seen the way you look at the world, and it's breathtaking. Ethan sighed, his expression softening but still guarded. It's just hard to believe in myself again. I don't know if I can face the world as I am now. What if I fail? What if I try to pick up the camera again and it just hurts too much? Failure is part of the process, Sarah said gently, her voice barely above a whisper. But you won't know unless you try, and I'll be here with you, every step of the way. He looked at her, searching her eyes for sincerity. You mean that? Absolutely, she replied, her heart pounding in her chest. I want to help you rediscover that part of yourself. You deserve it. A long silence stretched between them, each lost in their thoughts. Finally, Ethan broke the stillness. You know, I've been holding on to a lot of anger since that day. The way you treated me, it cut deep. I don't think I ever truly let it go. I know, Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly, and I'm so sorry for what I said. I let my frustration and fear take control. I was scared, Ethan. Scared of losing you, scared of what my life would look like without you. But that's no excuse for what I did. Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting to the window where the sunlight danced on the water. It's hard to move past that, Sarah. I want to forgive you. I really do. But I need time. It's not just about forgetting. It's about healing. I understand, she replied, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. I'll give you all the time you need, but I hope we can find a way back to each other. If not as lovers, then as friends. I miss you, Ethan. I miss the way we used to laugh, the way we understood each other without saying a word. Ethan turned to her, his expression softening further. I miss that too, but I can't promise it'll be easy. There are days when I feel like I'm drowning in my own pain. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. It's hard to keep faith when everything feels so broken. Then let's take it one day at a time, Sarah suggested, her voice steady. We can rebuild. We can create new memories, even if they look different from before. Maybe, Ethan said, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. But it's going to take work. It won't happen overnight. I'm ready for that, she assured him. I'll be here every step of the way, just like I promised. As they sat in that hospital room, the distance between them began to close. Not just physically, but emotionally. There was still a long road ahead, filled with challenges and uncertainty, but for the first time in a long while, they both felt the glimmer of possibility. The sun continued to shine through the window, illuminating their path forward, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light could still break through. As golden rays of the California sun streamed through the hospital window, casting a warm glow over the sterile room where Sarah and Ethan sat, their unspoken emotions hanging thick in the air. Sarah, her heart racing, finally found the courage to lay bare her fears. She shifted in her chair, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, I've spent so long running from my feelings, from the truth. I'm terrified of losing you again. Ethan, his eyes reflecting a mix of vulnerability and guardedness, looked away, staring out the window. You don't know what it was like for me, Sarah. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I lost more than just my health. I lost myself. How can I trust you again? The words cut deeper than Sarah had anticipated. She swallowed hard, feeling the tears prick at her eyes. I know I hurt you. I can't change the past, but I want to try to make things right. I want you to know that I'm here now, and I care about you more than anything. Ethan turned back to face her, his expression softened but still wary. You say that now, but what happens when things get tough again? What if I can't live up to the person you want me to be? I don't know if I can handle another rejection. His voice trembled slightly, revealing the raw pain that lay beneath his stoic exterior. Ethan, listen to me, Sarah urged, leaning forward. I'm not here to put pressure on you. I'm not expecting you to be the man you used to be. I'm here because I love you, and I want to support you, no matter what. We can navigate this together. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly as it hovered near his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with the weight of their shared history and unfulfilled dreams. Finally, Ethan sighed, a sound filled with both resignation and yearning. It's just, every time I think about opening up again, I feel this fear creeping in. What if I'm just a shadow of my former self? What if you can't love me like this? Sarah's heart ached at the sight of him so broken. Ethan, you are not just a shadow. You are still you, the man I fell in love with. The illness doesn't define you. You still have so much to offer the world, even if it's not the same as before. He looked at her, searching her eyes for sincerity. But what if I'm not strong enough? I don't know if I can handle being hurt again. You don't have to be strong all the time, Sarah replied, her voice steady. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel scared. I'm scared too, but we can face that fear together. I promise to stand by you. No matter what happens, I'll be here. Ethan's gaze softened as he absorbed her words. You really mean that? I do, she affirmed, her voice unwavering. I'm here for you, Ethan. I'm ready to face the consequences of my actions. I want to be a part of your life again. Just give me a chance. Ethan took a deep breath, contemplating her offer. The storm of emotions swirled within him. Anger, pain, longing, and hope. I don't know if I can forgive you just yet. I'm still processing everything. But I don't want to push you away either. I don't want to be alone in this. Then don't be, Sarah implored, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Let me be here for you. Let's take it one step at a time. We can rebuild our trust slowly. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes. Ethan nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. That sounds fair. It's going to be hard, but I'm willing to try. Sarah smiled through her tears, relief washing over her. That's all I ask for, Ethan. A chance to show you how much you mean to me. In that moment, the air between them shifted. The walls that had once separated them began to crack, allowing the light of possibility to seep through. They were still far from healed, but they were no longer alone in their suffering. As they sat together, vulnerability and honesty bridging the gap between them, they both understood that the path ahead would not be easy, but it was a path they could walk together. Ethan stood at the entrance of the local art program, a place that once felt like a sanctuary, now overshadowed by years of self-doubt and illness. The walls were adorned with vibrant photographs taken by aspiring artists, each image telling a story of life, love, and resilience. With Sarah by his side, he took a deep breath, feeling a surge of emotions flood through him. "I can't believe I'm doing this," he said, glancing over at her, the sunlight catching the strands of her hair, illuminating her face with a warm glow. "What if they don't like my work? What if I've lost my touch?" Sarah smiled softly, her heart aching for the man she once knew and the man he was becoming. "Ethan, it's not about them, it's about you. You have a gift. Remember those sunny afternoons we spent at the beach, capturing the beauty around us? You have a unique perspective on the world." He nodded, the memories flooding back. Those carefree moments before the disease took hold of his body and spirit. I don't know if I can handle more rejection," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "You won't be alone this time," Sarah said, squeezing his hand gently. "I'll be here, cheering you on. Just take it one step at a time." With newfound determination, Ethan stepped inside. The room buzzed with laughter and chatter, artists discussing their latest projects and inspirations. The air was thick with creativity, and for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. He approached a table where a few other participants gathered, each sharing their stories and showing their work. "Hi, I'm Ethan," he introduced himself, his voice steadier than he felt inside. "I'm here to get back into photography." "Awesome," a woman with bright red hair exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "What do you like to shoot?" Landscapes mostly. "And portraits," he replied, glancing at Sarah, who stood nearby, her eyes filled with encouragement. "But I haven't picked up a camera in years. I've been away from it all." "Then this is the perfect place to start," the woman said, gesturing to a nearby corner where a vintage camera sat. "Here, let me show you some tips." As they discussed techniques, Ethan felt himself relaxing. The fear that had once gripped him began to loosen its hold. He found himself recalling the thrill of capturing the perfect shot, the way the light danced across the water, or how a child's laughter could be immortalized in a single frame. "Why did you stop?" the woman asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Ethan hesitated, the weight of his past crashing down on him. I let life get in the way. I got sick, and I lost my confidence. It's hard to create when you feel broken." "You're not broken," Sarah interjected, her voice strong and unwavering. "You're healing, and art is a part of that healing. Just look at how far you've come already." Ethan's heart swelled at her words. It was as if she could see the man he longed to be, rather than the shadow he felt he had become. He turned back to the group, a newfound determination in his eyes. "Okay, let's do this." Over the next few weeks, Ethan dove into the program. Each session brought him closer to his passion and to the man he used to be. He shared his work with Sarah, who often accompanied him on photo walks, her laughter ringing through the air like music. One afternoon, they wandered down the beach, the sun casting a golden hue over the waves. Ethan set up his camera to capture the perfect sunset. "You know," he began, focusing on the horizon, "I used to think that photography was just about freezing a moment in time. But now, it feels like it's about capturing hope." Sarah watched him, her heart swelling with pride. "And you're doing just that. You're not just seeing the world, you're feeling it again." "Can you hold this for me?" he asked, handing her the lens cap. As she took it, their fingers brushed, sending a subtle warmth through him. "You're my muse, you know that?" She laughed, her cheeks flushing. "I'm just here to support you, Ethan. But if it inspires you, then that's a bonus." With her encouragement, Ethan snapped several photos, each click of the shutter a testament to his rebirth as an artist. He felt the weight of his past slowly lifting, replaced by a burgeoning sense of self-worth. As they reviewed the photos together later that evening, Ethan felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. "These are amazing," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "You have an incredible eye, Ethan. I knew it was still in there." "Thanks to you," he replied, their eyes locking. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." With a soft smile, Sarah leaned closer. That's what love does. It believes even when it's hard. In that moment, Ethan realized that while the past would always be a part of him, it no longer defined him. He had a second chance, not just at photography, but at life, and possibly at love as well. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the hospital room, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, her heart pounding in her chest. The day of her surgery had finally arrived, and with it came a whirlwind of emotions. She was terrified, both of the procedure itself and of what it meant for her relationship with Ethan. They had come so far since their painful separation, yet the ghost of their past loomed large. As she took a deep breath, she felt a familiar weight settle in her stomach, a mix of hope and fear. Just then, the door creaked open and Ethan stepped inside. He wore a hospital gown, his expression a blend of determination and vulnerability. Sarah's heart skipped a beat at the sight of him, the memories of their past flooding her mind. He approached her slowly, the tension palpable in the air. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady but soft, "can we talk?" "Of course," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect to see you here." Ethan smiled faintly, his eyes searching hers. "I wanted to be here before the surgery. There's something I need to tell you." Sarah's stomach twisted with anxiety. "What is it?" Ethan took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. "I've thought about this a lot, and I've come to a decision." He paused, the weight of his words hanging between them. "I'm going to be your donor." The revelation struck Sarah like a thunderbolt. "What?" "Ethan, you can't be serious. You don't have to do this for me." "I want to," he insisted, stepping closer. "The pain I felt from your words, it took years to process, but I realized that holding on to that pain was only hurting me. I want to forgive you, and this is my way of doing it." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she shook her head in disbelief. "But why? After everything, how can you still care about me?" Ethan's expression softened, and he reached out to gently cup her face in his hand. "Because I still love you, Sarah. I always have, and despite the hurt, I want to give you a chance at life." Her breath caught in her throat. She had never expected to hear those words again. "Ethan, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied softly. "Just know that I'm doing this because I believe in us, what we had and what we can still have. Forgiveness is a journey, and this is the first step for me." As they locked eyes, Sarah felt the warmth of his love seep into her heart, melting away the ice that had built up over the years. "You're incredible," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do," Ethan insisted, his voice firm. "You deserve a second chance, just like I do. We both carry scars, but it doesn't mean we can't heal together." The moment grew heavy with unspoken promises and uncharted possibilities. Sarah reached out and held his hand tightly, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and guilt. "I promise I'll make it worth it, Ethan. I'll do everything I can to make things right between us." "Just focus on getting through the surgery," he replied, his thumb gently stroking her hand. "We'll figure out the rest together." As the nurse entered to prepare Sarah for the procedure, she felt a new sense of resolve. She was terrified, but now she wasn't alone. Ethan's presence gave her strength, and she realized that love could transcend even their darkest moments. After the surgery, Sarah slowly regained consciousness, her eyelids fluttering open as she adjusted to the soft light of the room. She blinked a few times, trying to gather her bearings, when she spotted Ethan sitting by her bedside, a faint smile on his lips. "Hey there, sleepyhead," he said, his voice warm and familiar. "Ethan," she murmured, her throat dry. Did it go well?" "It did," he assured her, relief washing over his features. "You're going to be okay." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she processed the enormity of what he had done for her. "Thank you," she choked out, her voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe you really went through with it." "I wouldn't have it any other way," he said, his eyes shining with sincerity. "We have a long road ahead of us, but I'm willing to walk it if you are." "I am," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with hope. "I want to make things right between us, Ethan. I want to build a new future together." Ethan nodded, a smile breaking through the remnants of their past pain. "Then let's take it one day at a time. We have a lot of healing to do, but I believe in us." As the sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the room, it felt as though a new chapter was beginning. The coast of California outside shimmered with the promise of brighter days ahead, and Sarah realized that love, forgiveness, and the chance for a fresh start were all within their reach. Together, they could face whatever came next, hand in hand.